Hi, this is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to talk about the second in the series. It's funny because I was recording this today, the 29th of December, and the power and the internet went off. It's like God's going, do this again. So let's just do it again. Okay. The first one we talked about is debt forgiveness. Okay. Go back and watch it. It's 11 minutes long. It's not going to take you that long. Okay. The second one is this fairness, and I'll call it a doctrine. A doctrine is a belief system, okay? And I'm reminded of my son. My son's 24, and I'm reminded of a video that a friend of ours did back in Denver when we lived out there, and he's got to be 2 or 3, and he's like, he goes over to his friend. I mean, it's over the friend's house, and we call them cousins because they were so close with that. And he goes, "I'm angry with you, because you're not sharing, and you're sharing, and something or other." How he says it, and I was like, what he was talking about is fairness, and he was dealing with that. Now, I've dealt with a lot of other people who don't think it's fair that the debts would get paid off, and I'm like. And I'll give you a perfect example. This one dude was in my office. We were doing a whole big class on NESARA, and he just pipes up, and I just don't think this is fair. I paid my debts. You should pay your debts. And I'm like, again, the legality is what we're talking about here. And the fairness kind of thing is logged in by the educational systems, by the media, by Hollywood, by government, so all the systems have been loaded in to talk about it's fair for you to pay your debts, but it's not, they don't have to pay their debts. They don't have to pay the IRS system. They get to hijack it all the time. They get to do anything they want to. And you don't understand. That's exactly what they do. So how is it fair? So you use a fairness doctrine conversation. How's it fair for them to get away with all this stuff? But it's not fair for you. And like, listen, I can knock them 3 ways to Sunday on this stuff. It's because they want fairness. It's rules for thee and not for me, and that's what we're living through. Is we're starting to see it. By the way, they've been doing it for decades and decades and decades, but you're just seeing it from 2020 on. That's why you have awakened with that. So when we talk about fairness, the answer is, hey man, it doesn't mean that it's fair for you. Well, so what? You paid off all of your debts. I don't care. They were talking about justice. And I remember that guy, it was talking about fairness. And as soon as he goes, I said, do you think God is really just or fair? And he goes, what's the difference? The room erupted. I mean, like, God is just. He's not fair. Fairness is what Scott thinks about a particular thing. But another person would say that's not fair. If we went by fairness things, we'd never have rules for anything. I mean, you could never play a game of basketball because it's not fair for me. I mean, you watch a basketball game, you watch a football game, and the player that is called a penalty on is freaking out and getting all pissed off about this. And I'm like, he's talking about fairness. What the referee, as long as he's not doing it illegally, but if the referee's going, man, you held the guy, or whatever that circumstance is. And that's the point, is the referee is looking at the rule book of this and interpreting the rule book. The person is just talking about fairness. You're calling a foul on me with this. And that's what we need to kind of pull away from, is that issue of fairness. The reality is this is going to be a one-time event for that debt forgiveness is literally, absolutely 100% going to be a one-time event, to the point that people need to talk about with fairness points. Sorry that everything's darkening around me here with that. But what the thing is about the fairness things, I'm going to kind of boost the light up a little here. You can see me a little bit better there, but just the darkness in the back here. The fairness conversation that we look at is the reality is it wasn't fair in the first place, and they didn't want it to be fair. And so stop with this idea of it's fair and it's not fair. And here's the problem. We've had a ton of people out there trying to push the idea that it's not fair. So then they say things like, every debt from 2019 and older would be paid off, but every debt from 2020 on wouldn't be paid off. Fairness. I swear to you, when you analyze that thing through fairness, well, it needs to be, I need to have, more of the interest paid back than my friend. And I always use this example. It's a very, very easy way to do this, okay? Let's just say you have two friends. They've been friends since high school. Now they're 40 years later. One has been a lawyer all of her life, and she's made over six figures, okay? And the other person has been, worked in coffee shops in essence, okay? And they've been super friends for a very long time. So the coffee shop, woman's probably made, let's say, an average of $30,000 a year, okay? When we finish this debt forgiveness point, and let's just say both of them have debts, so just, make it easy. And so they both have their debts paid off, and you go, yeah, but it'd be unfair for her. She has to have more, more than just debt paid off, right? And then we go, well, we should pay the interest back. And I'm going, If the woman who has been the lawyer and she's made six figures and she's bought more expensive stuff is going to have more in interest, she's still going to get more with this. We're never going to get a fairness point. And you've got to stop that, because that is the communism idea. That's the socialist democracy silliness, okay? We've been trying to apply these old rules to this NESARA point, and we're going, it's about justice. It's about legal justice inside of constitutional nature. I'm not going to apply fairness points in here. And by the way, the White Hats are not going to do it either. And I'll leave you with this little story, because we always talk about fairness. So go back in time, and it's 1939. And you have a man who's got a wife and kids, and he's got a farm, and a farm and a ranch. He's mostly a farmer with that, but he definitely has milking cows and other things. And so he's living his life. He's trying to do his best job that he can. And then in 1940, and I think it was in August or so of 1940, September of 40. The Nazis come in and blitzkrieg France, especially Paris, and I mean they then 8 weeks later, France capitulates, and it's completely occupied territory now, and some of his employees, including his kids, some of his employees are Jews, and so they trounce them off to concentration camps, and the Germans come over and just take and pillage and rape or whatever they're doing, okay? And then 1944 comes along, and he hears about the invasion issue of the Allies coming through. And they come through his zone, which, by the way, this is not just a story just made up. This actually occurred over and over again. This is just an amalgamation of that, right? So the guy now, he's living through this time frame, and the Germans take up residence in there, and they're shooting everything that comes through. So now it becomes a base of fortification, and to get them to dig the Germans out of there, the Nazis in there, the Americans just basically toast the place, and he's got a burning wreck, and then they go through, and he doesn't get any compensation for that. And you go, that's just unfair. That's war. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude here, but it's war. We're all living through the war. Many people are struggling right now. That's why I'm telling you, this thing's coming to a close. I promise they know about this. But there's no way to make everything perfect. Okay? There's no fairness doctrine. There's no silliness with that. But there is going to be justice. And that's what the debt forgiveness is legal justice. We're gonna hold them to a legal standard of the constitutional nature, how they violate it with that. So hope that gives you some perspective and you understand what goes on there. Like and subscribe. Please subscribe. It really helps me out with that. Thanks so much.